Hello, boys and girls. Today's film is just for mom and dad, so if you're under the age of 18, get lost! Otherwise, let's continue. In the late 60s, Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz got rediscovered by the drug culture that was prevalent at the time. Alice in Wonderland in particular saw a second life. The animated Disney version, far too surreal for the 50s, got re-released on college campuses to great success. In fact, radio advertisements used Jefferson Airplane's psychedelic rock classic White Rabbit to advertise the film. By the dawn of the 70s, the American studio system had pretty much collapsed. The old studio heads retired, the studios got sold to corporations, and box office receipts were down. To fill the void, the floodgates were open to indie studios and weirdo movies of every shape and size. Roger Corman's New World Pictures opened in 1970, and Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Herz founded Troma Entertainment in 1974. The mainstream had been plunged into chaos, and the weirdos reigned supreme. Pop quiz. Name one of the most successful independent movies of the 1970s, one that launched an entire genre into the mainstream zeitgeist. Give up? The answer? Deep Throat.
Oh dear.
That's right, arguably the most famous pornographic movie of all time was a huge box office success when it was released in 1972. It made Linda Lovelace a household name and ushered in the age of porno chic. These were porn films released in the 70s that were renowned for their artistic merit and narrative ambition, not just their erotic content. They were not only widely seen and talked about in the pop culture, but even got positive reviews from mainstream critics like Roger Ebert. Which brings us back to Alice. What do you get when you combine a weirdo indie 70s sex comedy with a children's literary classic? You get Alice in Wonderland, an X-rated musical fantasy. And would you believe? This is one of the best Alice in Wonderland adaptations ever made. I'm not kidding. Playboy centerfold Christine DeBelle plays Alice, a sexually repressed librarian who is told by her boyfriend that she needs to not be so uptight. In typical 70s fashion, she goes on a journey of self-discovery, which involves having sex with increasingly wacky Wonderland creatures. But despite it being a pornographic film, this movie has incredibly catchy music, all of which is incredibly well sung and well orchestrated.
What's a nice girl like you doing on a night like this? On a thing like that? Should have been careful where you sat.
Plus, it's hilarious. Seriously, this movie is a legitimately well-written comedy, with clever jokes and actors with great comedic timing.
Hey, wait! I'd like to talk to you.
I can't wait when I'm late. I'm supposed to be at the Queen's party at 3:30. If I'm late, it could mean my... The Queen's a bitch.
It goes to show that pornographic films were more accepted in the mainstream back then, and could afford more than just simply people having sex on the screen. Now, because this is YouTube, I can't show any of the super sexy footage that I know you're all dying to see.
Thank goodness.
But as it turns out, a lot of people back then didn't see that footage either. There are two versions of this movie in circulation. There's an X-rated version, equivalent to a modern-day R rating, and a XXX version with hardcore footage inserted. There's a good reason for this. A lot of theaters wouldn't show pornographic movies back then, so the two versions were made so that the film could play in both types of theaters.
That's logic.
Most DVDs or bootleg Blu-rays of this movie include both versions. Interestingly enough, the hardcore scenes are shot on what is obviously degraded film stock with faded magenta coloring, which happens to color film from that period that hasn't aged well. Christine DeBelle herself saw the XXX version of the film a few years after filming had ended and claimed that she didn't remember shooting those scenes.
But someone came up and said, I have to ask you, was that you in the last scene of Alice? And I'm like, what?
But guess what? I've seen these scenes, and rest assured, it is clearly her taking a keen interest in the Mad Hatter's,
Thingamajig.
Really?
If you're into weirdo movies from the 70s, Alice in Wonderland, an X-rated musical fantasy, is one of the best of its era, and as an adaptation goes, it's one of the most fun to watch. It captures the wacky spirit of the Lewis Carroll novel while also speaking to the free-spirited, find-yourself fiction that was all the rage at the time. Just don't accidentally put this movie on for the kids thinking it's the Disney version, unless you're prepared to explain where babies come from in graphic detail. Whew, well, I don't know about you guys, but that film got me a little hot and bothered. I need something else, something to calm me down, something French, something with no eroticism in it whatsoever. What film could possibly save me in my time of need? What?
Ayez confiance en vous-même. Vivez à l'intérieur de ce qui vous est imparti.